Welcome back to the Michigan Business Beat, brought to you on the Michigan Business Network. Chris Holman here. And we're coming to you from the Grand Hotel and the Detroit Regional Chamber of Commerce's annual policy conference. And we have with us right now, Vanessa, it's good to have you here. Launch Michigan, Venessa Keesler. And tell everybody what Launch Michigan is.
Yep. Launch Michigan is a K-12 focused nonprofit. We represent a coalition of business, so Business Leaders for Michigan, Small Business Association of Michigan, and then labor, so trades, the operating engineers, building trades, education, so both teacher education, labor union, superintendents, and then philanthropy. And we're working to transform Michigan's public education system at the system level.
Gotcha. Okay, so give me the genesis. How did you start?
Um, actually, it was at this conference a number of years ago. The then heads of the teachers, the biggest teachers union, MEA, and Business Leaders for Michigan said, all we ever do is fight, and one of us wins when our guy or gal's in office, and then the other one wins the next time. And in the meantime, the education system doesn't have clear guidelines. We're not rowing in the same direction. So
Right.
can we figure out? Can we look at what other states have done, other nations? Can we look at what's going well and what's not here in Michigan? And can we agree to a framework for transformation that we all put our shoulders into, even though we are not usually pushing on the same things in the same way? And so that's how Launch was born. And then we adopted a framework in 2021 that said, really, what is that system transformation about?
So when you say we, you were there
I
day
was
one.
I was not there.
Okay.
Well, actually, day one I was there, but I was there at the Department of Education at that time, the Michigan Department of
Okay.
Education. So I've been around Launch from the beginning, but not in this chair.
Okay. Very good. All right. So have we determined in what direction we're rowing and
Yeah.
how we're going to fix that?
Yeah, so our framework for system transformation says one, what it means to get a high school diploma in Michigan is outdated.
Yeah.
It's about jobs of the past, not jobs of the future, and not about connecting kids to their next steps, whether it's a career immediately or a credential and then a career or in and out. We're too much doing the one size fits all model. So, one, we need to adopt a high standard. We call it the Michigan Education Guarantee. The Growing Michigan Together Council also said Michigan needs to adopt the Michigan Education Guarantee and commit to this. So there's bipartisan support for this. So set that high standard for what it means to graduate, and then you have to make some system changes to go with that. Second big component is we need adequate and equitable funding. Michigan has lagged behind in our education funding. We've
Yeah.
been making some strides forward, but you can't get high outcomes without high support. So got to do that. And then the third big transformation is making sure every part of the system gets aligned and is accountable and responsible. So we've got a lot of cooks in the kitchen, and it can be hard to make progress when you don't have someone clearly in charge and some people working together on shared goals.
All right. Let's talk about because we're actually talking about redesigning to an extent
Yes.
what's going on right now. So are we getting into like channeling, like making sure they're moving towards a career type thing?
I actually think when you think of, you might, your listeners might not know this or they might, Michigan's current graduation standards were adopted in the early 2000s
Yeah.
to answer the question of what do kids need to go to four-year college? And so they do a pretty good job answering that.
Yes.
But that's not where everybody's going. And also, we've learned what you need for four-year college has shifted too. And kids being able to connect not only to like skills in high school, but to their future, to see their future and to connect. I'm learning these skills or these tasks or I'm doing this math because I have this goal and this is how I'll use it in the future.
Right.
So it's actually not about channeling anybody into one path, but it's about opening up again, making space in our standards for career focused education alongside academics and making sure each kid is really crafting that individualized pathway and taking steps toward it in K-12.
So vocational, where does it fit in there? Because we need trades,
Yeah, for sure.
you know?
It's one of those multiple pathways. I
Yeah.
think what we see in Michigan is there's been so much amazing work out of the trades, the business community to create things like apprenticeships, work-based learning. But because it's not something that's required for all students, it's like an option that some kids have access to. And we're saying this should be something all children have access to. Um, so that they can try out different things. They can, again, when I say take steps, get credits, get a credential, get a job that pays them while they're in high school, that prepares them for their next step.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, we can do this better. We can
Yeah.
be more future focused with it.
Well, the financing piece is important, I think, because we get it's kind of the rich get richer, the poor get poorer,
Hmm.
and we
Hmm.
can't have that. We can't have that poor segment
Yeah.
education.
Yeah. Agreed. I think there's a lot of ways Michigan's education financing doesn't make sure that all students have those equitable opportunities and outcomes. One example is not every child in the state is in a school building that's of equal quality, safety, and that depends a lot on tax code and money. And so we need to make sure it's not fair for some students to be in beautiful buildings with every resource they have and others to be in a 100-year-old building where they can't use half of it because
Right.
it's, that's just, it's inequitable, but it's also like untenable as a state to do it.
Well, and I've always been an advocate that the system thrives not because of the facility.
Yeah.
It thrives because of the demographic, the parents,
Yeah.
the family, et cetera, et
Yeah.
cetera. Vanessa, thanks so much for being with us. Dr. Venessa Keesler from Launch, Michigan. Continued good luck. We need some change.
Thank you.
Okay. Hi, I'm Chris Holman. Still. And we are at the Grand Hotel. We're here for the Detroit Regional Chamber of Commerce's annual policy conference. And you've been watching the Michigan Business Beat on the Michigan Business Network.